Hey engineering students, it's Miss Jo, and today we're going to learn the additive method of 3D modeling. And so if you recall, this is the shape that we use the dial caliper to measure, and today we're going to create it in OnShape. So the additive method is basically starting with a two-dimensional shape. So if I double click on the sketch, you can see that I just made the two-dimensional shape, and then you're going to start to extrude things up to create the 3D shape. So that is what we're going to do, and we're not going to use the exact measurements of the shape. We're going to just kind of guesstimate to get a general idea of how this process works. So go ahead and open your assignment, and we're going to start by creating a sketch on our top plane. And we're going to start with a center point rectangle. So be sure that you have a center point rectangle. And we're going to go ahead and make our rectangle like so. And then notice that the box forms here, and we're going to make the shorter end of that 1.2 inches. And then we're going to make the longer side of that rectangle, we're going to make it 2.4. So go ahead and put in 2.4 inches, and there we have our original rectangle. Now we're not going to close this sketch. We're going to actually create everything in this first sketch, so just keep that open. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a circle in this upper side of the sketch. Go ahead and make a center point circle, and we're going to start somewhere around here, and we're going to make our circle. Now we want the diameter to be 1.2 because we want it to span this, right? So we're going to put 1.2, and that's our circle. Now we might not have started at the midpoint here. If you kind of like go in here, you can see there's this little gap. So what you want to do is click your dimensions tool and then click from there to there. So that distance you want to be 0, and that should move your circle down. Beautiful. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see what we're doing. Okay, so now we have that circle. The next thing we're going to do is choose another center point circle, and this time we're going to create it from this center of the first circle, and the diameter of that circle is going to be 0.8 inches. And there we have our second circle. Perfect. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a center point rectangle. And we're going to create that center point rectangle somewhere along this line. So go ahead and make your center point. And you want it to come up into like the between areas here and here. And let's go ahead and make the width of that 0.4, and the height of it, go ahead and make 1. Okay, and there you have your little rectangle like that. Now we want to go ahead and click the dimensions tool, and we want to make the distance from this line to this line. We're going to make that 0.5. So that should move up your triangle there. And that's okay, your rectangle, it's okay if it's going up here into that space, that's not a problem. Okay, and then the last thing is we want to do one more center point rectangle, and we want to do it along this line here. So we're going to just make a rectangle like so, and we're going to make the width 0.25, and then the height can just be 0.5. Perfect. Okay, now it looks pretty messy, but that's okay because the next thing we're going to do is come in with our cut tool. So you see the little trim tool right here. We're going to click that. And what that does is it will, any line segment, it just erases it. So we don't need that line segment or that line segment or that line segment. And then we can kind of zoom in here. And we also don't need this line segment or this one or this one. And then if I zoom up really closely, we don't need that or that or that or that. And then let me zoom out. Now I'm going to zoom in right here. And again, with my cut tool or trim tool, I'm going to cut that. Oops, nope, not that. I want to cut that, and then just that little piece there and that little piece there. And then you also want to go ahead and delete or trim out all of these little dots. So we don't want any of these little dots. Okay, that looks great. Okay, we also do not need this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or that dot, or that dot. Okay, hopefully this will make sense in a second. Okay, so go ahead and press the check mark and your shape should look like this. So now we have our general shape and now we're just gonna start extruding things up. So let's start with this little weird piece right here. It's not gonna come up as high as the rest of this circle. So we're gonna go ahead and click and just make sure that shape is highlighted, and we're going to go ahead and click on the extrude, and we will extrude that up 0.7 inches. So go ahead and change your depth to 0.7, and that should extrude it. If you put it back in isometric, you can see that it is extruded. Go back to the top view. Now the rest of this circle here, we are going to extrude that up 1 inch. So go ahead and click extrude. It's already set to 1 inch depth, so you're good to go. Now the center of this circle, we're only going to extrude that 0.2. So go ahead and click extrude and 0.2 and press the green check mark. Voila. Okay, this middle part does not go, it goes up a little bit higher than this. So that is going to be extruded 0.8 in depth. Green check mark, we're almost done. And then this last part here, we're going to extrude that up 0.3. So go ahead and click that, and the depth is 0.3, check mark. And now if you put it back in your isometric view, you can press the letter P to take the planes off, and you can see you have a lovely little piece. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Look at that. Okay, so that again is called the additive method, where you start again with a two-dimensional sketch and then you start to bring things up. Okay, so that's how you would make that shape. I'll see you next time.